It is a cold winter night outside, and it is a perfect night for a delicious meatloaf. This one is easy, healthy, pretty low in fat, and I think you're going to find it really delicious. So let's get cooking. So we've got one whole white onion. You could use yellow, you could even use red. This just happens to be what we have on hand. So we are going to chop this up. I like figuring out the quickest way to chop onions because I cry like a baby. My eyes really start burning. So what I tend to do for my meatloaf, and it's one extra step, but I think it really adds a lot of great flavor and texture, or lack of texture, is to saute the onions. It brings out the sweetness. So we're going to put that off to the side in a bowl. And the next thing we're going to do is dice up some carrots. So first thing we're going to do, it's one big carrot we're going to use, is we're going to get all the outer skin off. And then chop it up. I'd be a little bit more particular about how finely the carrots are chopped, because being so dense, there's a bigger chance of the crunch factor in the meatloaf, even though we saute them. And as I've told you, I hate crunch in my meatloaf. And we're just going to throw those carrots right into the bowl with the onions since we're sauteing them together. All right, so I have my cast iron skillet, and we're going to add maybe a tablespoon or so of olive oil, maybe a tablespoon and a half. And we're going to saute up these carrots and onions. And I take them down pretty far. I even go a little past translucent because I want to make sure the carrots are sauteed well and won't have the crunch to them when they're cooked properly in the meatloaf. And I also really like bringing out the sweetness of the onions. So this will be about a 4 or 5 minute saute. One of the reasons I'm excited about this meatloaf recipe is, like everybody, some people after the first of the year, we're really trying to get a little healthier in terms of how we eat. And this meatloaf recipe is very lean. The beef that we're using is 95 to 97% lean. And the turkey that we're using is also very, very lean. And we'll show you the specific numbers. But I don't think it'll be lacking for flavor, and it's pretty easy to do. So hope you like it. All right, it's been about 4 or 5 minutes, and the onions are starting to turn a little bit golden and very sweet, and we're done. So we're going to take this off to the side and put it back in its bowl. All right, this calls for some bread. You can buy breadcrumbs. We use whole wheat, kind of dense bread, a little healthier. And you can chop it up real fine, but you know, we got these fun little toys, might as well use them. So we're going to pulsate this thing until it's nice and finely ground. Boom. That's all it takes. All right, so we've got our breadcrumbs that we've pulsated, whatever, and our 2 tablespoons of bread or of skim milk. And we're going to let that sit for about 5 minutes, and then we start adding the other ingredients. You can use ketchup. I'm going to jack it up a little bit and use barbecue sauce. So we're doing 2 tablespoons of barbecue sauce. And then we're going to do roughly a teaspoon of basil. Okay, teaspoon of basil. Roughly 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. You can always salt at the table, and roughly 1/2 teaspoon to a teaspoon of pepper. About 1/2, depends on how peppery you like it. We'll go with 1/2. And a tablespoon of Dijon or stone ground mustard. So we're going to mix all this together with an egg and an egg white. So basically 2 eggs minus 1 yolk. So we've got a 9x5 baking dish, loaf pan you would call it. Spray it down with a non-stick spray. These are the carrots and onion that we sauteed. And we're kind of adding everything together at this point. We have the turkey. that we're adding. And the beef. You could also ground pork, use ground pork, but you'd want to use pork loin since that's very lean. And now, yes, I've washed my hands. You just got to get in there and get at it to make it a loaf. So we start off by mixing it. And then there's a point where you just got to dive in there, and I'm getting close. You definitely want to make sure it's very well incorporated because you've got two types of meat and you want it to almost become one, feel like one meat instead of two separate. So it does take a little bit of work, but maybe 3 to 4 minutes of doing this at the most, and we'll be ready to put it in the pan, smear it down with ketchup, put it in the oven. We'll have a great meatloaf. We've got our oven preheat at 350. This really smells awesome. I love doing a little bit of barbecue sauce with, or instead of ketchup, with ketchup. So we're going to form it up, kind of make sure that it's as even as possible so the presentation looks good, and the cooking time will be the same throughout the entire loaf. In the oven, 350. 35 minutes, and we've got another 25 minutes to go. But we're going to go ahead and add the ketchup on top of that. It's not going to be quite as dark as a normal meatloaf would be because you have some turkey in there, but it is going to darken up a little bit more through the cooking process. So I've got about 1/3 of a cup of ketchup, and then we're just going to throw in, just to make it a little bit better flavor-wise, we're going to hit it with some Worcestershire sauce. It's always fun to say. About a teaspoon. I'm going to give that a mix, and then we're going to put that directly on the meatloaf. Just spread it out. So we're putting this back in for another 25 minutes. All right, so we're done with the meatloaf. There were a couple of times that we had to drain some fluid off as we were cooking it because of the vegetables and the turkey, but that's cool. So it looks awesome. You cook it up to about 160 internal, and here's what you have inside. Looks beautiful. And we are going to take a bite here in just a second and tell you how it tastes. All right, I'm going to dig in now before everybody gets here. Barbecue sauce adds a lot of great flavor. The carrots, the vegetables, and the ketchup on top with the Worcestershire. And you don't think it's lean, it tastes really good. So give this a shot. Thanks for coming by. Check you later.